All right, so today's breakdown of beef fillet. As you can see, we have a whole fillet in front of us. That fillet starts off at the head where we break it down to tail. Still a bit longer, runs down to the tail. So I'm going to show you how to clean it and take off this sinew here because it makes the meat curl up. We're going to break it down into different portions and then also show you different cooking temperatures. Those cooking temperatures are important to understand from blur all the way up to well done. All right, so we're going to take the head off here, which is this part. If we had to break it down, this part up until here would be known as the chateau. No one really uses it much anymore today. So we're just going to remove that. As you can see, it tapers down and we're left with this big piece over here. Obviously, we don't want to waste this. This part here we would use for various things like carpaccios and tartars and that type of thing. Mince, if you like, as well. So we'll keep that aside for the minute. Take the knife, we just slip it underneath at an angle of about 45 degrees. We then pull that off. You don't have to be a hero and try and pull all of this off in one movement. Rather take your time, do it proper. So then what we do is again from this side all the way up. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off the excess areas like over here. This part of the tail is a bit difficult to work with, so we're just going to use that for parts of our chopping and other componentry there. Also trim off the top section over here, put that together. Then this piece over here I'm just going to wrap in some plastic wrap. Wrap this up. This has become a very cool technique in kitchens where we get much more refinement and sort of better finishes, if you like. So we're pulling quite tight here. It doesn't look like it, but I'm actually pulling this quite tight because we want to get a nice firm finish on here. You kind of make like a handle on the end, and that's what we're left with here. All right, so based on that we're going to then tie these little pieces up, again just securing that strength inside here to give it a great shape. The reason for this now is if you look at a piece of steak on your plate at a steakhouse, you'll find that it's just this ugly clump of meat that they just dump on the plate, where this gives you a lot more refinement. So ideally what you would like to do is leave this for about 2 to 3 days. The reason for that is it compacts the meat nice and solidly, and then when you cut it, you'll get a much better finish on there. But I'll show you for the minute. So we'll just cut it down the middle, and that's what you're left with. Absolute refinement. It gives you a much better finish on the plate for grilling, etc. So we would then cut our steaks like such. Obviously the longer it sits in here, the tighter it is. Let's do one more. All right, so to carry on with our cooking component, we're going to show you different ways of temperature cooking. And in this case, I've got 3 pieces of meat that we cut from our fillet earlier. So we're going to do this one in a rare, this one we're going to do in a medium rare, and this one we're going to do closer to well done, just to show you how the meat changes through the different cooking temperatures. Over here I have a hot pan, as you can see. We're just going to put a very thin layer of oil in the pan. A lot of people unfortunately make a big mistake where they put too much oil in. As you can see, that pan's super hot. All right, and then nextly we're going to put some seasoning on, and in this case I actually just use salt. We're going to pop those into our pan. As you can see, the plastic is still on there. And the reason for that is I wanted to try and keep all of that nicely together in there. That plastic will melt but not dissolve. So it will stay in its same form but just shrink a little bit. And what you really want to do is just get some beautiful caramelization happening on there. As you see, I put the salt on just before I cooked it. That's how most chefs would cook it. You can put it on an hour or so beforehand and it won't dry the meat. That old fallacy of putting salt on before we dry the meat out, it's because you've cooked it incorrectly or overdone it. So that's what we dried out, not the salt itself. Okay, as you can see, you've got that beautiful caramelization happening there. It's all the sugars in the meat, the salts, etc. that have all come together. The secret of a hot pan means it doesn't stick. The one I'm going to remove now, because it's actually sitting at blur, we want to show you what a piece of meat at blur looks like. And then I'm going to take off the second piece. I've cooked the 3 pieces of meat in 3 different sections. The first one I took out with about 2 minutes on either side, and that would give us a nice blur. And then the second one over here is my ideal steak. because it's medium rare, and you're looking at about 4 minutes aside. And the reason for that, but obviously your temperature when we sear it off is quite high, and we just lower that temperature just so we don't burn the meat, and we want to have slower cooking temperature. For me, medium rare is the best option. The reason for that is it's the middle road. You don't want something that's maybe too under, and you don't want something that's too over, because that is where your meat gets dry, tends to be on the hard side is what some people say. So for me, that's the perfect middle of the road. So let's cut that and see what it looks like. So this is our bleu. Look at that. Over here, just remove the last of that plastic. Here's our medium rare, which feels similar. See, there's a little bit more moisture. You'll see the color of the meat starts to change as it stands now as well. And here is our medium plus. You can see that lovely pinkiness slightly changing to just the middle and then the dry part. And the more it will stand, the more that those colors will change. So we're just going to finish that off nicely with a bit of seasoning.